Alrighty, Dark Knight's Metal and Death Metal by Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. The ultimate big culmination of Scott Snyder's brain and Greg Capullo's pencils. It's a lot. It's very dense, it's very heavy, and if you want to read every single metal and death metal book, you're going to have to get these. These are the mandatory reading for the metal books, and these are the secondary optional readings for the metal books, and I don't even have everything. So if you're very confused on where to start, what you need to read, just need a guide to guide you along this insane, epic, confusing, almost even not worth it journey, because it's so bloated and there's so much filler. And if you've seen my death metal review, you know I didn't really love the series because it was just so much to read. But if you're stubborn like me, because everyone said it was filler, everyone said that it was too much to read, and I didn't listen to them. So if you're stubborn like me and you want a guide, this is the video for you. Now, just a disclaimer, I did read the death metal series just like about a month ago. When it comes to the original Dark Knight's Metal, I haven't read that in like 3 years. It was like 2022 when I read it, and I don't really remember much of the story. So this isn't really going to be a review of the original Dark Knight's Metal. It's just more of a guide to help you along, because I've seen a lot of guides, at least a decent amount of guides on YouTube regarding the original metal, but I haven't really seen many guides on death metal. So again, I'll put timestamps below so you can kind of jump to where you want to jump to. Let me just start off by saying there's not exactly a perfect guide. That I don't think there's one like DC published. Yeah, so the guides are a bit subjective. So a few years ago when I was reading Dark Knight's Metal, the guide that I chose to use was from Omnidog's Vault, one of his Better Days in the Batcave live streams. This was actually the first video I saw from him, and that's how I discovered his channel, and I really do love his channel. But that is, I'll link it in the description below. I'm kind of looking at it right now. But the guide that I'll be referring to today to help you guys is the guide on the League of Comic Geeks website. They have a guide for both metals, Dark Knight metal and death metal. So if you want to use Omnidog's guide, it's a great guide. That's the one I used. But I'm just gonna, for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna use the League of Comic Geeks guide, and they're not that different at all. There's slight differences, but honestly, either guide you use will be totally fine. And yeah, honestly, the purpose of this video is I just want to give you a super comprehensive breakdown on the books that you'll need and which stories to read in what order. And I literally have everything marked off for you. So we're going to take our time and, save this video, read along as you're watching this video, or like save this video, you can refer back to it as you're reading along. And yeah, I'm just going to yap for the next half an hour or so. So for the first metal event, you're going to have to get these 4 books. You got Dark Days Road to Metal, the actual metal event, Dark Knight's Metal, I believe this is the Resistance, and Dark Knight's Metal, this one's called Dark Knight's Rising. So I have these things here. So these are the 4 books you need to understand the first metal event. So let's kind of break everything down right now. The first book you want to read is this one. So before you get to the actual metal series, you have to read the Road to Metal, which is the first 2 issues of this book. So issue number 1 is this, and issue number 2 is this. So you might be asking, what the hell is the rest of this book? It has nothing to do with metal. I just think they wanted to find an excuse to make another book and gouge more money out of you, because this book collects Final Crisis number 6 to 7, The Return of Bruce Wayne, Batman 38, 39, and Nightwing number 17. So again, 80% of this book has really nothing to do with the metal story. It's not very necessary reading. It gives kind of some extra context to the last Crisis event and, Bruce Wayne's death and his resurrection or whatever. Not very mandatory at all. I don't even think I read them, to be honest. But yeah, so before you read the actual metal event, you have to read the first two books in this one, and they're both called they're called Road to Metal and Dark Days the Forge. Honestly, I would just skip this one, to be honest. If you're on a budget, you don't want to buy a whole new book, because again, 80% of this book isn't necessary, and you could probably just like find a video on YouTube to get the recap of these first 2 issues. I would say this is not the most necessary book, but if you're a perfectionist, you want to get the whole collection, sure, whatever, get it. So that's this one. So after you're finished reading those 2 issues, you want to read Metal #1, which is the first book in the Dark Knight's Metal one. Next on the list is Metal #2. This one right here, this issue right here. That's the next one. Next, you're going to jump to the Rising trade paperback, and you're going to read Teen Titans #12, which is the first book out of this. Then you're going to continue on to the next 3 books in this, and you're going to read Nightwing #29, Suicide Squad #26, and, oh, did I just tear this? Thank God I didn't know. And Green Arrow #32. So you're still keeping within the Dark Knight's Rising trade paperback. And then what you're going to do is you're going to jump to this book right here. You can just read the whole thing at this point. This is a bit where Omnidog's guide and this League of Comic Geeks guide differs a bit. Omnidog's guide kind of sprinkles through this book with the other series, but the League of Comic Geeks guide just says read this book in entirety. And honestly, I kind of agree, because this book doesn't really have much to do with the overall Metal story. It's just a bunch of origin side stories of all the bad guys. And honestly, these bad guys are so much cooler than the bad guys in Death Metal, because Death Metal is like Gotham Joker and like an evil car, like Batmobile. Like, it's so stupid. This is actually really cool, and the art in this book is great. So this book collects the Batman Who Laughs, the Red Death, the Drowned, the Dawnbreaker, the Murder Machine, the Merciless, and the Devastator. But again, the issues here don't necessarily have to do with the actual Metal story. It's just giving context to the bad guys that's in Metal. So again, if you really, really, really don't want to read this, you don't have to. It's not mandatory. It'd be a fun, again, if you really care about what's in here, you could just always look at a YouTube video or something. Again, these are actually really fun stories. I'm not really a fan of one-shots, because these are pretty much all one-shots, but they're fun one-shot stories just to say, like, how would happen to certain Justice League members if they became Jokerized, you know? So yeah, still a really fun read, just not super mandatory. Okay, now that you're done reading all those one-shots, you're going to go to the Metal book and read Metal #3. Okay, now we're going to be in this book for a while, because after you read Metal #3, you're going to want to read Flash #33. After that, you want to read Justice League #32. And then Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps #32, and Justice League #33. Now this is where it kind of gets a little interesting, and again, I feel like DC really used this event to gouge as much money out of us as possible, because the next book you want to read is a book called Batman Lost, and you can find it in the Resistance trade paperback. So you can see it's right here, and you can also peculiarly find it in the Dark Knight's Metal trade paperback. It's right here. It's the same book. They reprinted it twice in the series. I don't know why they did that. Don't ask why. I have no idea. But again, if you want to read it twice, you can read it here and here. They're both there. And then after you read Batman Lost, you're going to move over to back to the Metal trade paperback, and you're going to read Metal #4. I do love this cover. This is a great cover. Honestly, all the Metal covers are fantastic. Actually, where's my phone? My phone for the last 3 years has been the Dark Knight's Metal #1 cover. I love that cover so much. So yeah, you're gonna read Dark Knight's Metal #4. The last book in the Resistance trade paperback at the very end, you're gonna read Hawkman Found #1. So that's that with the Resistance trade paperback. Finally, you're gonna go back to the Metal trade paperback. The last 3 issues there. It's going to be Metal #5, Dark Knight's Rising, The Wild Hunt, and last but not least, the final finale, Dark Knight's Metal #6. So there you go. That is all 26 issues of Dark Knight's Metal, 4 books. It's going to cost you like $100, Canadian at least. To get this full story, and we're barely a third through the entire saga arc. We're not even halfway there yet. All right, so you're thinking done metal, I can jump right into death metal. You are absolutely wrong, kinda, sorta, kinda. Because they want you to believe that before you get to death metal, you have to read all of this. And, kinda, sorta. The thing with death metal is it kind of doesn't even matter what happens in the Justice League run because they don't really address it. Or at least they don't address it on the page, they kind of reference it. So in the grand scheme of things, this entire Justice League run between the metal books, it's not even that necessary, but for the hell of it, I can briefly touch about it. So without spoiling much, I'll just say at the end of metal, something happens where something gets broken, something gets a little cracked, we'll just say that, and it causes some panic, and a Justice League is formed, and before you get into Justice League, you gotta read No Justice. No Justice. This book is essentially the Justice League and some bad guys, Legion of Doom people, teaming up to fight. I'm not going to say who, but yeah, it's a very short read. It's like 4 issues. Very, very thin. I've never seen a DC trade paperback this thin before. Typically, Marvel has like super thin trade paperbacks like this. You know what I mean? But yeah, at least they didn't put a bunch of filler crap in here and jacked up the price, right? So thanks, I guess. But yeah, you got to read No Justice first, and then only then can you read the Scott Snyder Justice League run. There's 5 volumes. I don't know why they put the number 1 here, but they didn't put the other numbers here because all the numbers are at the back now. Very strange, very strange. But yeah, this is not some weird reading order. It's literally just a 1 through 5. I haven't read this series in a really long time since I read the metal books. I remember like really hating these 2 volumes and feeling kind of neutral on this volume. And I remember really loving these 2. I don't know about loving, but I remember significantly liking these last 2 volumes more than these first 2 volumes. That's my review of Scott Snyder's Justice League. All I remember is it was very bloated. I didn't love George Jimenez's art at all. And it gave me a headache, to be honest. It gave me a headache. And yeah, I'll just say the end of this book, it's kind of a Infinity War moment. I'll just say that. And it does not get paid off at all in Dark Knight's Metal. It doesn't at all. So that's why I have to say, like, this is not mandatory reading at all if you just want to read the metal books, to be honest. And then if you look at any comprehensive list on reading the metal saga, these 2 books come up. And again, I don't know if this is controversial, but you don't really need to read these at all. This is a standalone Batman Who Laughs story that's not really connected to metal, at least from what I remember. It's not really connected to metal at all. If anything, this is a spiritual successor to Black Mirror. I have not read Black Mirror yet, but I've heard that's what people say. It's a spiritual successor to Black Mirror, has to do with Jim Gordon and his son and all that. It's even, drawn by Jock, who did Black Mirror. So again, to understand the grand metal arc story, this is not mandatory reading at all. It's just a fun side standalone Batman Who Laughs story. And same with this. I feel like just because this has Batman Who Laughs in it, people assume, oh, well, it has to have to do with Dark Knight's Metal saga. It doesn't at all. He's just a bad guy who's in different stories. And I feel like I wasted my money on this because, again, this is not connected to the Dark Knight's Metal saga at all. But on a list somewhere I read, it said, oh, you got to read this. You don't have to read this at all. This has to do with, like, Supergirl and Jim Gordon. And, like, it's fine. I remember, like, thinking this was okay. But it really has nothing to do with the grand overarching scheme of Dark Knight's Metal. Now, what's a bit ironic is the 2 trade paperbacks that I don't have with me, that I had never read physically, is actually kind of mandatory for you to read the next step of the Metal series, which is the Year of the Villain stuff. And again, most of it isn't mandatory, but the end of one of the Year of the Villain books, essentially, you kind of need to know that little nugget of information to understand the next part of the Metal series. And if you don't want to know that nugget of information, I'll just spoil it for you now. So close your ears for the next like 30 seconds. But essentially, I forget how it happened exactly, but Lex Luthor and Batman Who Laughs were kind of fighting to see who would be second in command to Perpetua, and Perpetua chose Batman Who Laughs and kicked Lex Luthor off the team, and it's like, you're not part of me anymore. And Lex Luthor kind of dipped out, and he's gonna like rule the universe on his own now. And that's pretty much all you need to know regarding Year of the Villain. The 2 books you need to get if you want to complete the whole thing, if you want to read everything. Again, most of them are just one-shots of Lex Luthor like recruiting bad guys and stuff. That's like the majority of Year of the Villain stuff. But the 2 trade paperbacks you have to get if you want to pick those up, it's Year of the Villain, The Infected. It kind of has like Shazam doing something. And then it's Year of the Villain, Hell Horizon. So those are the 2 trade paperbacks you need to get to do the full complete collection of Dark Knight's Metal, if you really want to. But you don't really have to, honestly. All right, now you're finally on the final leg of this chapter. You've read Dark Knight's Metal, you've read No Justice, you've read the Batman and Superman thing, you've read Batman Who Laughs, you've read Year of the Villain, you've read all of that, and now you're ready. All this buildup, all this excitement, like 125 issues of like DC toys just being slammed against each other. You've been reading that this whole time, and now prepare for the biggest disappointment of your life, because you're about to read like another 25 issues of complete filler. But again, if you're like me, you didn't listen to everyone who said this is filler, this is not that great, it's very bloated. If you're like if you're stubborn like me and you're like, I'm gonna read it anyways, this is the perfect guide for you. So you need 5 books. 5 books. It's funny because in Dark Knight's Metal, it was 26 issues of story, and in Dark Knight's Death Metal, it's 24 issues. So it's 2 issues less of story, and somehow it's parsed out into 1 whole more trade paperback. You're collecting 5 trade paperbacks now. Anyways, the trade paperbacks you're going to have to get is obviously the Death Metal book, the main event. You're going to have to get The Darkest Night. You're going to have to get this Justice League book. Multiverse Who Laughs. And War of the Multiverses. All right, so let's get started. The first book you're going to have to read is right here. Death Metal #1. Pretty easy, pretty simple, very demure. Next book you gotta read, take a guess, ready? Death Metal #2, oh yeah. All right, now we're getting into the deep end, because you gotta switch to the Darkest Night trade paperback, and you gotta read Dark Knight's Metal, Legends of the Dark Knight #1, so this guy right here. Gonna go back to the main trade, and you're gonna read Death Metal #3. I do love this cover right here. Honestly, if you squint, it kind of looks like a 2020s Frank Miller drawing. Let's be honest, it kind of does. Still gonna be in this book right here. You're gonna read Dark Knight's Death Metal Guidebook #1, right here. It's #5. And then the 6th book you're going to read is Trinity Crisis #1, right here. Going to jump to the Justice League book, and you're going to read, what is this one? Justice League number 53. Justice League number 53. After that, you're going to finish off the last 2 issues in this book, which is Death Metal Speed Metal #1 and Multiverse End #1. And this book is finished. I'm going to go back to the Justice League book and read Justice League number 54. There we go. Number 54. I feel like I'm at an auction right now, just spitting off numbers. Going to go back to the main metal book and read Death Metal #4. There we go. All right, we're jumping to Multiverse Who Laughs. First book in Multiverse Who Laughs is Robin King #1. So there you go. Jumping back to the Justice League book, you're going to read Justice League number 55. Justice League number 55. Back to the Multiverse Who Laughs, and you're going to read Rise of the New Gods #1. I'm not joking, Rise of the New Gods #1 is pretty much the only memorable story from this book. It has a new character who's really cool, and he does a kind of a beautiful monologue about the DC universe, this specific world. And I think I've talked about it in my Death Metal review, and it genuinely was beautiful, and it's pretty much the only story I remember from this entire saga. So if you see Rise of the New Gods #1 laying around in a comic book store, I recommend you pick it up, because honestly, it kind of stands on its own, kind of. Just a very beautiful summary of DC, the DC universe, honestly, and I really liked it. Going back to Justice League, gonna read Justice League number 56. There you go. Gonna go to the Multiverse Who Laughs trade paperback. You're going to read Infinite Hour Extreme #1. There's Lobo over there. Look at him. There you go. The final issue for the Justice League book Gonna read Justice League number 57. There we go. Justice League number 57. Finally, we're back in the metal hardcover, and you want to read Death Metal number 5. There we go. Gonna go to the Multiverse Who Laughs book, and you want to read Multiverse Who Laughs number 1. Finally, we're checking out War of the Multiverses. These are very big. It's just 2 issues, and they fit it in a whole thing. First book you want to read from this is the last stories of the DC Universe. Very sad, but here it is. We're on the home stretch now, ladies and gentlemen. We're almost done. We're almost there. The 21st issue of the series is Death Metal number 6. Go back to the original trade, Death Metal number 6. To cap off The Multiverse Who Laughs, the last issue in this book is The Secret Origin number 1. There you go. Before the final issue, before the final Death Metal, you're gonna finish it off by reading this. The Last 52, War of the Multiverse. That's such a cool title, The Last 52. Only if the book lived up to the coolness of the title. The Last 52. And last but not least, the final issue to this whole arc, this whole, like, 15 books plus, like, 150 issues of stuff. The last issue you gotta read before you can put this metal to bed and never think about it again and just be at ease and at rest. And Scott Snyder's not touching Batman until he does absolute Batman, and that's actually good and it's not filler. Allegedly, I haven't read it yet. But before you put your eyes to rest, before you can finally sleep at peace and know metal is no longer a thing you have to worry about, Dark Knight's Metal number 7. The coolest thing about this entire series is this cover right here. This entire series was probably worth it just for this cover, honestly. Beautiful cover. Now, the inside of this book is complete hollowness and emptiness because it does not live up to this cover. But anyways, nevertheless, that's it. That's the full, complete metal, death metal, Justice League. That's the breakdown. That's everything you need to know to read this series. Again, unless you absolutely love every Crisis event and love Scott Snyder and love Greg Capullo, and if you have some weird fixation on DC, I wouldn't recommend this. The juice is not worth the squeeze. Especially, I didn't pay full price for any of this. But if you even consider paying full price for this whole set, you're completely cooked. It's going to be $300. Do not get it. Do not get it. If anything, get the compendiums or the omnibuses. That might be cheaper. But yeah, this is everything. This is everything, guys. Plus the 2 Year of the Villain trades. How much is this? This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. This is 15, 16, 17? I think this is 17. 17 books plus Year of the Villain, which is 2. So almost 20 trades, guys. Almost 20 trades for some mid. I feel like I'm being a bit too harsh on it. It wasn't a terrible read. Let me put this down. Ugh, it's so heavy. Don't get me wrong. It's not a terrible read. Everything here is at least competent. It's not terrible. It's not bad. A bit frustrating. A bit bloated. But it's a lot. It's a lot. And I think, everyone's time is valuable. And I'll just say there's probably better uses for your time. Instead of reading, let me show it again. All of this. This is for the thumbnail. Yeah, there is probably better uses of your time, but if you really, really want to read this, there you go. It's probably too late now because you probably already read everything, and now you're at the end of this video. If you are at the end of this video, thank you so much for watching it. It's probably a 40-minute long video. It's going to be so hell to edit, but that's okay. This video has been a long time in the making, literally 3-4 years in the making. I've been reading this Dark Knight series. I've been reading this metal series for so long, and it's finally over. I'm finally done. So I can finally put this series to rest. My battery is at 2% now. If you made it to the end of this video, I want you to comment Batmanium. Batmanium, Batmasium, whatever that weird Batman metal in these books are, Batmanium, whatever it's called. Comment that down below. My camera's at 1% now. I've been recording for like an hour at this point. I appreciate you guys so much, and I could finally put this back on my shelf and go to sleep. Good night.